Hello, here I am again, and I'm ready to talk a little bit more about World War II and the experiences I had growing up in Berlin, Germany, under the dictatorship of Adolf Hitler. It is always hard to talk about those times, but I believe we must talk about them, and we must keep the awareness going that people know that history, sad as it is, can repeat itself. And we really want to guard against the repeat of times like we had during Adolf Hitler's existence. It was the saddest time in this world and the saddest time for me and many others in Germany to grow up under this dictatorship of such a man that had acquired a following that kept the big hand over all of Germany. It is hard for me to talk about it, I must admit that, because when I'm finished with this 15-minute video, I still sit here in this chair thinking back how it was, and somehow I relive these times again. But I hope that teachers can use my video in order to teach in their classroom the children to have the awareness how precious freedom is and how precious it is to keep this freedom for them and the ones that come after them. So I'm sitting here in my den, willing to talk about it. I talk about things like this in Zoom meetings, in clubs, churches, wherever I'm asked. And I have in my hand a sheet of paper from the last Zoom meeting I had with questions that were asked that were of interest of the students, to the students. And I come to this question: do you remember the propaganda? Do I remember the propaganda of Adolf Hitler that we got to hear day by day in Germany? Oh, yes, I certainly do. I remember it sometimes way too well, even in my dreams that turn into nightmares occasionally. What I remember most of all was the music that I heard when I was a small child that came to me, to my ears, from the streets from Berlin, the street where I lived on. And it was usually the youth groups, whether they were boys or girls, that were marching through the street, drumming their drums, blowing their trumpets, and singing their songs that brought my attention to what was going on the outside. And I loved music, so I ran to the window. I called my mom, and she opened the window wide so I could really listen to their music. And I could see them. My nose was just over the windowsill. I was that tiny. So I could kind of see them and listen to what was going on downstairs. And I'm telling you that these young boys or young girls that were marching down the street were doing that with the goose step that they were taught by Adolf Hitler. The girls, maybe not so much, but they were singing their hearts out. And actually, to see this, these young kids walking and playing their instruments and singing, this was really pretty. And it interested me. And it interested my mom. So she came to the window with me, and we looked down to the street and watched these youngsters march by till they disappeared. Also, the movie theaters. When I was taken to a children's show in a movie theater, We had, of course, the newsreels before we got to the children's show that we were having to see and watch. Everything in these newsreels that was shown was nothing but the power that Germany was supposed to have in this world. We heard the voices of the ones that made all this noise called propaganda, proclaiming that we are the super race. We are the ones that makes the world turn around. This was drummed into our ears everywhere we were, including before a movie that was meant for small children like me. The news showed us how the war was progressing. It showed us the battles that were being fought. And it only showed us that we were the winning side. It never showed us the death that was in such a battle. And it wasn't just death on our side, but on all sides. It just showed the German people that our soldiers were victorious, smart, superhuman, and victorious. This is what Hitler wanted for us to know. This is what he meant to keep our morale up, to show us that our fathers and sons and uncles and nephews were not among the dying. They were among the victorious, the winners. But I'm telling you, our graveyards in our cities or in our villages, wherever, they showed us that we lost lives that were dear to us. Hitler really wanted to brainwash all of Germany so that everyone would walk to the goose step that he was dictating to even the very young, like our 10-year-olds that had to belong to a youth group. Over the radio, we were hearing from Adolf Hitler himself when he gave his speeches at the Olympia Stadium or at the Sportshalle in Berlin. Over the radio, we heard how powerful our small nation was, and that the world really had something to be afraid of us because we were superhuman. We were the superhuman race that Adolf Hitler thought we should be. We should only be happy to be human beings, actually. That's why we were put into this world, to be human beings and to worship the Lord that placed us there in the first place. But Adolf Hitler had an ego. An ego means that he tried to edge God out. This is what the word ego spells. E-G-O, etching God out. And this is what he was trying to accomplish with my grandparents, parents, with us youngsters. And he wanted to be the one that had his pictures posted everywhere, which it was. His picture was seen all over everywhere. Most of all the offices that we had to walk into, his picture was on every wall. And then I need to tell you that his picture was also on the wall in our apartment between the big two windows we had in the living room. That space between the two windows, we had a picture of Adolf Hitler. My brothers were taken in the SS at the age of 19 and 18. They were not willing SS soldiers, but they were made to be SS soldiers because in Hitler's eyes, they were looking like the super race he wanted to develop. Smart, tall, good looking. That's what he wanted. So they were put into the SS against their will. But with God's blessing, they were in the fighting SS that were in Finland and Poland all throughout the war. They were fighting. They were not the ones that were in the concentration camps. And in a way, that was a blessing for my brothers. But because they were SS soldiers, it was mandatory for their families to have the picture of Adolf Hitler in their home. And we had to have it. My mom, when she got angry, she sometimes turned the picture to the wall, not to see his face. And when the doorbell rang and we received company and we couldn't trust anyone, actually, there was no trust in Germany to be had. She ran like the wind to the window and turned that picture around so that this man's face could be seen by our visitors. So propaganda was not just out in the streets and all around us. Somehow we also had it in our home when we had a look at his face. And we had to pretend that we liked having him there on our wall, which we didn't. Now, if this tells you just a little bit of what kind of propaganda we had in Germany, there was way more to be seen and heard than just this. Every holiday, the flags were flying like an ocean of flags from window to window because Hitler wanted his power to be seen. And it was mandatory for us to do this. We obeyed because when we didn't, we were in trouble. Now, with this, my time is up. I did the best I could in the 15 minutes that I have to make this video. And I sure do hope that it will do some good for someone when they listen to it and when they see it. So for right now, I will say good night and God bless you. And the next time, we have more.